So, hello again. My name is Paul DiBernardi, and I'm the Marketing Director for DeviceLock. We're a global security company with our North American headquarters in San Ramon, California. I'll be your host today. First, thank you very much for taking the time to join with DeviceLock and Itad partners for this informative webinar, Stop Data Leaks at the Source, Practical, Affordable DLP. The webinar will have numerous parts, and please keep in mind that at the end of the webinar, we'll be announcing the winner of the new Apple iPad for those of you attendees that are still with us in about 45 minutes or so. So we hope you'll hang in there with us because you have a very good chance to win that great prize today. Again, the new iPad just out from Apple Computer. Okay, with that, let's walk through the agenda together right now. First thing that I'm going to do is I'll be introducing Ray Sprong, who is the founder and president of Itad Partners. And Ray will introduce his company very briefly with one slide. And then we will be transitioning over to Vincent Schiavo, the Chief Executive Officer of DeviceLock, who will talk about the insider threat and the DLP market, what are the drivers out there right now in the DLP market, what's happening. He'll provide an overview of the DeviceLock DLP product line. He'll also then transition the presentation at that point over to David Mattison, and David will do a fairly in-depth demonstration of the DeviceLock software. It'll be live. We'll get to see him set up configurations, protections, and then actually try to violate those rules and see how the software handles all of that. It's extremely interesting, and I think that at the end of that process you'll understand what a great product this is, with DeviceLock's ability to stop data leaks at the source. When David is done, and that should be about 45 minutes from now, we will do a drawing, and Ray will pull a name out of a hat or something, and we're going to be announcing the winner of the new iPad from Apple. Also, I want to let you know there is a Q&A ability here. You can post questions using the tool, the GoToMeeting tool. I know a lot of you have probably attended webinars before, so don't be shy. Please present your questions, and we will monitor for that as well. So with that, what I'd like to do at this point is introduce Mr. Ray Sprong, who is the president of Itad Partners. Say hi, Ray. Hope you can hear me.
Say hi, Ray. Hope you can hear me.
Thanks,
great, Paul.
You're welcome.
Itad Partners has been around for coming up on 10 years, and our sole focus is to provide tools to IT support organizations that either aid in their ability to meet compliance requirements, enhances their security, or just provides ways for IT operations to work more efficiently. We've looked around at the space and chose DeviceLock because we do believe they're a best in breed. Their focus is easy to implement, logical, and addresses what I believe to be a huge need in the marketplace. We've got so many people looking at the uglies out on the web and thinking that's their security threat. The reality is that the biggest security threat is actually your own employees, either maliciously or unintentionally. That's your greatest exposure today for data loss. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Vincent Schiavo, the CEO of DeviceLock, who will do his thing. Vince?
All right, I'll turn it over to you next, Vince, and thank you so much, Ray. Here you go, Vince. I'm going to pass the presentation to you now. All right, Vince, I see the slide. I do not hear you yet. So, Vince, do we have your mic on? I see you moving.
Yeah, it says I'm unmuted now. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry for the delay there. Okay, so my name is Vince Schiavo. I'm the CEO of DeviceLock, based here in San Ramon, California. I'm just going to provide you a brief introduction to our company before we hand off to Dave to do the actual demonstration. Our company has been around since 1996. We're a private company based in just outside of Silicon Valley in Northern California. We're an independent software vendor, one of the leaders in endpoint device and port control software and data leak prevention software. In fact, we have over 60,000 customers now who have downloaded and installed our products on over 4 million endpoint devices around the world. So we have a pretty big footprint out there, lots and lots of users. In fact, the single largest commercial customer is a large financial institution in New England that has over 71,000 endpoints deployed. Basically, our products are designed to protect our customers' intellectual property assets. And that's really just about anything that you might have, any kind of information you might have that you don't want to leak out to the outside world. That can be customer information, supplier information, maybe you have some merger or acquisition plans in the works that you don't want to get out until you're ready. I mean, it really could be just about anything. So it's a broad horizontal application for these kind of tools. It's really been driven over the past few years by the regulatory and audit compliance requirements that are being placed on companies around the world, whether it's PCI for credit card merchants or HIPAA for the medical industry or the various financial compliance requirements for banking and finance or public companies. There's all kinds of compliance requirements that companies have to align themselves with, include data privacy or data protection for private information and preventing data leakage. Now, Ray touched on this earlier. What's kind of interesting is there's been so much emphasis in the IT security space on preventing hackers from getting into your network from a remote location, and we tend to stereotype that as some person in a dark basement on the other side of the world trying to hack into your network and disrupt operations or steal information. But Ponemon Institute did a research study last year, and they found that really only 8% of serious data breach incidents have been caused by external cyber attacks. Majority have been by inadvertent or unintentional mistakes that employees or contractors or visitors make on your network, and sometimes malicious insiders as well, maybe people that are disenchanted or disgruntled or whatever. But the vast majority of threats are not really coming from your network. That's not to say that people aren't doing that, but that problem's long ago been resolved by enterprise firewalls and user authentication solutions and IDS, IPS. Our products are different and are really focused on stopping data leakage at the source, which is the trusted insider. Gartner did a study a few months ago and surveyed IT executives and asked them to stack rank what their top 3 security priorities are. It was interesting to see the #1 area on the list was data loss prevention. So this is and then probably what's really driving this more than anything else is the explosive growth in mobile devices in the workplace. I'm sure you're all hearing this buzzword, bring your own device, or BYOD, which kind of means the consumerization of IT, where people are bringing their own personally Androids or not just phones, there's iPads, there's iPods, there's USB sticks, there's cameras that have massive amounts of memory in them. And for these kinds of devices, the traditional network perimeter security products really mean nothing. You just walk in the front door with one of these devices in your pocket or in your backpack. You can plug it into the endpoint workstation on your desk, whether it's a laptop or a desktop, and then anything that you have the privileges to see on that network, you can pretty much just drag over and put on that device and then pop it back in your pocket and walk right out the front door. That's a serious cause of data leakage. And that has IT execs pretty much worried, and because they're under pressure to enable this bring your own device culture, to allow people to use their own devices for work. There are potentially large savings to be had because you don't have to provide the hardware if the employees are bringing their own, but the downside is the security threat that poses. So that's a big opportunity for companies like ours to provide a solution. At the same time, these same IT execs are under pressure to move more and more of their infrastructure off into the cloud. And as they do that, it makes protecting the endpoints that employees are using to attach to that infrastructure in the cloud even more critical. So it's not just about external devices that are attached to your endpoint anymore, like USB drives or DVD-ROM burners and that kind of thing, but it's also cloud-related or internet-related threats that you can attach to directly from your endpoint laptop or workstation. You can post information on Facebook. You can put it up on Twitter or Google Plus or Tumblr. There's a whole slew of ways that information can get out to the outside world. So our product is a software solution that protects the enterprise from data leakage through all of these threat vectors that I've been mentioning. And this is a good graphic that kind of illustrates that, where you can see all the kinds of ways that you can get information out of an employee's workstation, whether it's a laptop or desktop or whatever. You can burn a DVD-ROM, you can print information, you can put it up on your instant messenger, or you can send it to your personal Gmail or Hotmail account. You can post stuff up on Facebook. You can copy information to the clipboard and then move it to another file. You can put it on a USB drive. It just goes on and on. There's all kinds of, if you look at the back of a laptop, all the ports, all the ways you can get information out of there, there's quite a few avenues for data leakage. So our product is a software-only solution. You don't have to have an appliance or any specialized hardware. It's just an agent that runs on the endpoint. It has a very small footprint, low overhead. That means that when you install it on all of the employees' endpoints, you're not going to have a lot of help desk calls with people saying, hey, what happened? My computer is running slow or not working. For the most part, people won't even really know that it's there. And it's highly scalable because the way we've developed this software to be integrated with Microsoft Active Directory group policy. If you already have all of your privileges defined in group policy, it's fairly easy to install our product and push those policies down to all the endpoints just as you would anything else using Active Directory. And that makes it massively scalable. As I mentioned, we have one customer in particular up in New England has over 71,000 endpoints running today with this software. So the product is called the DeviceLock Endpoint DLP Suite, and that's because it's made up of 3 separately licensed building block software modules. The first being DeviceLock itself, and Dave's going to demonstrate these in just a minute. But DeviceLock was our original product that really focused initially on USB thumb drives. That was the big issue. In the old days, people were freaked out because you would have all these expensive firewalls and all this infrastructure, but somebody could walk in with a USB stick in their pocket and connect it to an endpoint and move whatever they want. So that was the first product, and that quickly evolved into being able to control and filter what goes out to other endpoint attached devices as well, because as you can imagine, if somebody's trying to take something out of your organization on a USB thumb drive and they see they've been blocked, the next thing they'll try is to maybe burn a DVD or maybe send it to themselves via Gmail or whatever. So one by one we've added pretty much all of those different threat vectors that I showed on the last chart as you go around the circle, all the different ways you can attach to the endpoint. And then last year we announced Network Lock, which is the second module that works hand in hand with Device Lock, and that's focused on those network-borne threats like Facebook, Twitter, Google+, personal email, or webmail, and instant messengers and that kind of stuff. And then the third module is Content Lock, which works with both of the other modules to add another dimension, which is not only the contextual information of who is this person, what time of day is it, where are they trying to send this, where is it coming from, but also what's actually in the file. So it can see if you're trying to send a file that has 2,000 Visa card numbers in it, that's a problem. It should be blocked or logged at least. So those are the 3 modules. When you combine them, that's the Endpoint DLP suite. So in summary, what's really driving this business right now is mobile device adoption. That's creating a lot of concern amongst IT execs because they want to allow people to bring their own device into the workplace, but they have to secure those devices. The fact that we have such a huge installed base has really helped us to develop these products further because we get so much customer input from all over the world and things that people would like to see. So we have a very robust product, as you're about to see in the demo. And we're clearly a leader in the endpoint device space. And the fact that it's integrated with it, by far the easiest product out there to deploy, and it's the most affordable product on the market. And it's a good fit not only for large enterprise because of the massive scalability, but also for small, medium enterprise because it's so easy to use and easy to deploy and so inexpensive. You don't have to have rocket scientists to set this up and run it. You can use your Microsoft Windows network administrators. Anybody who understands how Active Directory works can deploy and manage these products. Okay. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Dave Mathieson, who's our Director of Strategic Accounts here in California, and he's going to provide you with a detailed demonstration. Okay, here we go to Dave. You should have the dashboard here now.
Thank you, Vince. Let me know when my screen pops up.
There it is.
Okay, thanks everybody. My name is David Mathieson. I'm the Director of Strategic Accounts for the Americas for DeviceLock Incorporated. And what you're showing on my screen right here is, I just wanted to point out, this is a removable disk where in any normal Windows scenario, I'm going to have full access to this where I can move any data off of my workstation that's otherwise protected by firewalls in your perimeter, but as soon as I move information to that removable media, I can throw that into my pocket and walk out the door with it in most scenarios out there in the corporate environment. Over here you'll see just another group policy editor, and I wanted to show briefly how DeviceLock folds into group policy with an MMC snap-in. So there's no schema extensions, there's no ADM templates, there's no workarounds, there's nothing like that. It's a pure MMC snap-in to group policy. And so if you're using Microsoft's Group Policy Management Console or the traditional Active Directory uses in computers and branching off into group policy from that console, then again you would see our DeviceLock controls roll up right underneath computer configuration. And you can see the various ports and device types that we deal with here. And again, this is just about every method of how data can leave an endpoint Windows machine. For the interest of time, I'm going to go ahead and show you one of our alternate consoles that works in any environment, whether it's Active Directory, Novell, LDAP, or even a Windows Workgroup. And so I'll be going over to the DeviceLock Enterprise Manager. But again, I wanted to emphasize that we are here. I'm using a removable piece of media where I have full control. I can certainly delete whatever I want. I can add whatever I want. If I wanted to copy something from my desktop, it's easy enough to do that. But I wanted to show you that I have full access to this particular piece of media right here. And with that, I'll bring up our DeviceLock Enterprise Manager and do a quick network scan here. In my small little demo network, I've got this machine here I'm going to work with today. And you can see this is a fully functional console. If you're not using group policy, you can use this for installing services, uninstalling services from remote machines. You can also run several reports against the endpoints to see what the actual permission set is, as well as scanning those machines for devices that you may want to whitelist at some point through the policy. You also have the ability to look into whatever audit activity has been happening on that local machine, as well as any data that is shadowed, which I'll cover later. And but we're going to focus right now on creating a service template for permissions. Of course, if you're in a group policy environment, once you set that policy, then as long as that GPO is linked and active in that OU or at the domain level, then that starts populating at the endpoint layer where you have your DeviceLock services installed. And then at that point, you're dynamically updating through group policy. With this particular console, it's a little bit more manual, so we'll go ahead and go through that process right now. I've done a little housekeeping ahead of time to save us a bit of time today, and so I've set up a few of the background items like pop-up messages and things of that nature. But I'll go ahead and go into our template here and start configuring for policy. And as you saw in the group policy editor, it's exactly the same look and feel. So anybody who's a Windows administrator familiar with Active Directory administrative tools or group policy tools, it's going to be very familiar and something that they'd be used to within a few minutes of using. So again, I'm going to skip several of the housekeeping items that are covered under service options and go down to our actual devices. It's a layered solution. We're working at 5 different layers of security. We're talking about the device interface, the device class, the device type, and when you get into the whitelisting layers, you're looking at device model numbers and even out down to the unique device number of particular USB devices. So we're going to start from generic to specific here, and these are several well-known Windows classes that Windows operating system understands, and we need to do a little bit here generically to allow certain things to work and also generically block certain things. For USB HID or human interface devices, single function mice, keyboards, etc., we want to go ahead and I'm going to double click twice on that to disable the access control. Might sound a little counterintuitive that I'm disabling this, but I'm actually disabling the control for it, so that actually exempts it from the policy and allows any single function mouse or keyboard to operate. You'll also notice that we have a column here for the regular policy, and we also have a column here for the offline policy. It's very important to understand that we can have two different policy profiles based on whether your machine is inside your firewall and on your normal network, or if it's off the network out in the wild like most of the laptops would be. This allows you to have a completely different policy or fine-tune that policy when your laptop's out in the wild and more exposed to certainly network issues, and as well as your local endpoint peripheral ports and devices. And that can be sensed based on whether that is wired connectivity or if you're using cached domain credentials versus authenticated credentials, or if you can connect to one of our DeviceLock enterprise servers. I'll go ahead and go down to USB storage devices, and here we're going to actually do the opposite. We're going to double click on that once to enable the access control to generically block USB storage devices. Now certainly you can't stop here because this will defer to any device that's also whitelisted. It'll also defer to if you have individual authenticated permissions in a permission list at the associated port or device type layers. And so we'll go ahead and move on to those next. Here you see the screen again with several device types and ports, and for here we're going to go ahead and focus in on the USB port. And when you look at the default permissions in Windows, obviously everything is wide open. So administrators, everyone, which literally does mean everyone, and also system authority. So since I'm actually in the administrators group, I'm going to delete that to demonstrate today, and I'm going to remove everyone as well. We're going to start off as this is a sandbox type of environment, so I'm going to work with my policy until I get it exactly right before I put it out to the world. So I'm going to go ahead and remove everyone. I'm going to leave system authority because system authority is necessary for several drivers to operate, and so I'm going to leave that with full authority, and then just go ahead and add back domain admins. Most organizations will also create maybe a security group for a generic allowance of USBs and maybe or a read-only level of allowance of USBs, and have those groups in their Active Directory, and simply have that in the policy here and then add those users to that group when it's appropriate for their job function. You'll also notice that we have day of the week and hour of the day controls, very unique to our product. So if you have a scenario where no one should be doing anything between, say, 2 a.m. and 5 a.m. in the morning in your office, because the only people there might be custodial staff, someone might have left their session wide open and under their logon authority, and certainly you wouldn't want anything to happen in that scenario. So you can make sure that those hours or days are blocked out. Or if you have a shift working scenario, you can adjust accordingly to what hours of the day or days of the week that you care about blocking or allowing access to certain devices or ports. So we've now taken care of the device class layer and also the device port layer, but we're not done. We need to go into the actual device type layer. And so here we are, the same wide open credentials again. We're going to go ahead and do the same thing, leaving system and adding domain admins as a practice and leaving them with full authority. You'll also notice, and I'll touch on this briefly, that we have the ability to differentiate between a generic partition and an encrypted partition of any software that we can detect, and we have that in a list that I'll show you briefly. What that allows you to do is block all generic partitions and only allow write authority, for instance, to encrypted partitions of those software products that we can detect, things like TrueCrypt or Windows 7 BitLocker or PGP, and about 4 or 5 others that we can detect if that encryption is on a partition on that removable media. Now I've gone through the quick and dirty configuration on the access side. Now we also need to look at the auditing and shadowing side of the product, which is literally half the product is dedicated to auditing and shadowing for compliance and your own internal purposes. So we're going to go ahead here and turn on pretty much everything for now just to show how it works. Audit allowed are success events. Audit denied would be denial events from access. We're going to go ahead and keep it very generic here, keeping in mind you can pre-filter by user or group, or in this case we'll go ahead and just make it everyone. You can also differentiate between read and write events, and again we have day of the week and hour of the day controls as well. So there's a lot of pre-filtering capabilities you can do to limit the amount of data that you're gathering and make it very focused to a particular group or exposure you think you might have in your environment. Same thing with removable. If we want to get that file level information, we're going to have to do that here. So I have all success and all failure records. I want to track those. And here we have the differentiation between regular auditing, which is your event viewer type auditing. So Bob copied ssn.txt from computer A to device B at 5 o'clock on Thursday. That's your typical event. That's very good information, but maybe you actually want to know what's inside ssn.txt. And prior to having the content lock module, we had no way of knowing what's inside that without capturing that file as it was written to the removable media, or even attempted to be written to removable media. So you can have it both ways. You can see what people are attempting, even if you're blocking that access, or if you're allowing them to use USB removable media, then again you can capture that file for evidentiary purposes. I also want to briefly go back up here to mention that we have, because we left the keyboard and mice wide open as a practice for USB, we also have the ability to shut down keyloggers that are hardware based. So any legacy PS2 keyloggers would be scrambled. Anything they collected would be absolute garbage. You can also have a pop-up to notify the user to maybe physically check their device to see if there's something plugged into the back or the front or in between their keyboard cable. We certainly can log the event as well. And then we have, because the bad guys tend to pose as two different types of devices, either they pose as a keyboard, and we can actually block that whenever we detect that there's a keylogger present, or they might pose as a passive USB hub or a port extender. And we can also turn that particular feature on, but keeping in mind that it would block even legitimate USB hub port extenders as well. But if you're worried about that threat, then you can certainly turn that feature on as well. I'll also briefly go here. Here's the list of encryption products that we can detect on removable media to help enforce use of encryption. So again, we can mitigate your access to a generic partition versus an encrypted partition using any of these technologies. Again, Windows BitLocker to go, TrueCrypt, very popular open source encryption, PGP whole disk, very popular commercial encryption, and others in the list as well. This, combined with the ability to isolate devices through the whitelist that might be pre-encrypted hardware, encrypted devices, allows you two different methods of, and any combination as well, of enforcing use of encryption without having to proactively encrypt. So I've taken our permissions, I have those set, and I have auditing and shadowing set as I like it for the beginning, so I will go ahead and close my template. And now I need to push that template out to the machines that I'm desiring to manage. Again, if this was group policy, every computer that has the device lock service installed would receive that information automatically. That was successful. We can, what we'll go ahead and do here is remount that device. Now you notice two different errors saying that you do not have access. This is a custom message pop-up that we can configure within the product. We have about a dozen different pop-up messages and different contingencies you can have. And so this tells you that there's nothing wrong with your machine. This is actually blocked by corporate policy. And in fact, if you want to request access to an exception device to the policy, you can do that with a control panel applet that allows you to request that use through a device lock administrator. This message here is from Windows Explorer because we do mount the device. We do give it allow it to have its drive letter because, again, someone else with the proper authority could be logging into this machine, or it could be a multi-user scenario through Citrix or Terminal Services, and some users that are in the proper group or have their their membership in the permission list or the proper time of day or day of the week would have access to that device. And so we do check that access, and then Windows Explorer produces this error as well. So perhaps that's a bit too draconian, so we're going to go ahead and modify our policy a bit to allow some additional access from our least privileged state. And we'll go back into our policy. In the interest of time, I'll go ahead and do a couple rules at a time in this next example. So for permissions, I'm going to go back here, and in this case, I'm going to add my account back to the equation. And again, this would normally be a group for better management in your Active Directory environment. But for here, I'm going to go ahead and reduce the permissions from full to just read and eject. Now keep in mind, domain admins, the system are still full authority, and David M has read only. We need to do that at the other layer as well. And again, this is where you can differentiate between generic partition access and, again, encrypted access. So I'm going to go ahead and leave this a bit more wide open because I'm more comfortable with that security scenario. And I'm going to turn these off for David when it's a generic partition. I'll also introduce you now to the content-aware rules for devices. And if you only have the core module, you'll only see file type detection rules because that's part of the core that predated our content log piece. But if you have the full licensed version of the DLP suite, you will see all types of content-aware filtering. And that includes the ability to filter by not only file types, but also industry standard keyword lists, regular expression patterns for things like credit cards, social security numbers, other government numbers, things of that nature that have a fixed pattern and upper and lower bounds and demarcation points, etc. Also, document properties, things like the size of a document or the name of a document or certain other attributes of a document that would be in the properties that we can flag and make sure that those perhaps don't go out of your environment. And then complex just means the ability to combine any of these types of rules into one longer rule through Boolean operators and also numerical conditioning. So for now, I'm going to focus here on our most popular file detection rule, and that's for executables. So again, if I have been given read-only to a removable piece of media, I still have the ability to execute executables. And so we need to maybe prevent that so that I'm not installing rogue software or that auto-run is not starting rootkits or launching malware that I might have on this device I'm introducing to the environment. So we're going to go ahead and assign that to a particular user or group and the executable rule. And we can actually apply this to either permissions or shadowing. So if you want to conditionally shadow a file based on its true file type, and again, that doesn't matter what the file is named, we're actually looking into the binary of the file. So if malware.exe was named, happy.txt, we would still look into the binary and see that it's an executable. So in this case, we're going to focus on permissions, and for now, just removable. And I'm going to deny every possible way of launching an executable from removable media for David M. Okay, and there's the rule. And I also had mitigated my permissions down to read-only in both removable and in the port. And so now we'll go ahead and push that policy out again. And keep in mind again, if this was group policy, this would all be happening dynamically. And that was successful. And now we introduce our device again. And I won't get those blocked messages this time because I do have some authority on this device. You'll see that since we have a content rule in place, it's going to be scanning for some information on the device, especially for a file type rule. Okay, so now I have my device here. Oh, you'll see that the pop-up message says, okay, I found some files you're not supposed to have access to. So it gives you some fair warning from a file type perspective that there are some files there that you don't have read or write access to. So what happens if I try to do something here? If I try to delete a file, sorry, access is denied. Why? Because I have read-only permissions. Now if I try to launch this executable, it's also not going to let me do that as well because of the rule, and it will give me the Windows Explorer blocked message, but also our pop-up message. I'm not allowed to read or write to executables. But I can certainly open another type of document or go into my folders, whatever the case might be. If I try to add something new here, of course, access is denied because I have read-only. So now you have a scenario here where if someone wants to bring in media that they have documents or other things they need to have access to, then you're reasonably assured they're not going to be introducing malware because they're not able to install software, launch any executables that might introduce malware to your scenario in a protected environment. Of course, we're not antivirus, we're not anti-spam, we don't do those things, but this helps as another a way of avoiding that threat vector by not allowing people to run executables and introduce those things to your environment. Okay, so now I'm going to go into a deeper content rule, and to do that I actually need to give myself some permissions to write to this device again, so I'm going to restore some permissions. In this case, we'll go into what's a regular expression pattern. In the case where DLP had, as an industry, struggled early on because the rules were too draconian, too harsh. Any instance that they found of a Social Security number or a credit card number were blocked, and that caused a lot of frustration in the user base for people who needed to be able to perform their jobs using that type of information from time to time from an authorized perspective. So we're going to go ahead and show a numerically conditioned content rule for Social Security numbers. So for here, I'm actually going to grant myself just write permissions back again. And again, I feel comfortable doing so because I'm going to put in a content rule that will help protect it. And again, with any MMC style interface, right-clicking is very important. Okay, so I'm going to look at all types, and I've actually put a template together already where I copied the generic U.S. Social Security number, and I'll go ahead and edit that now to show you how that looks. So here's the regular expression that was in the original template, and all I've done differently is I'm saying, you know what, that's a great template, I want to use that, but I want to make sure that it's numerically conditioned so it doesn't flag every single instance of a Social Security number. So I've made that greater than or equal to 3. And why did I pick 3? Well, maybe you're refinancing your mortgage and you have your documentation at the office that you're sending to your lender, and it has you and your spouse's Social Security numbers in that. Now, from a corporate perspective, do we really want to block that from going out? Or maybe we monitor it, sure. But do we really want to get in the middle of that and block that situation? No, not necessarily. So in this case, if someone's not in the HR group and really shouldn't be dealing with Social Security numbers, but here's a real-world scenario, let's go ahead and say we're going to worry about it when it's 3 or more. Maybe beneath that number, we're just going to shadow it. So I'm going to go ahead and assign that to David M. We're going to apply it to permissions. Again, it could be conditionally shadowed instead for removable. And again, I'm going to deny any access to anything that has 3 or more socials in it. Very straightforward. Okay. Now we need to push that new rule out. And then introduce our drive again. I still have my file type rule, so of course it's going to scan. Okay, this time you'll see that I do have some expanded access, so I can go ahead and delete if I need to. I can certainly add to it, so and it gives me my warning about my file types that might be inaccessible. So for here, I'm going to go ahead and here's my folder on my workstation where I have a couple different documents, and they're very simple, straightforward items for demonstration purposes. Again, here's my mortgage application. I have 2 socials in that, and if I try to move that to removable media or through any other protected protocol or device, then I can set it up to block that or allow that. So again, no problem, it allowed that to go through. But what do we have here? Okay, I have 3 or more, and this could be an identity theft scenario because why? Because David M. is not in the HR group. Does he really have the authority to deal with Social Security numbers? Probably not. So why would he have any situation where he has more than 2? I can't fathom a day-to-day reason why, and so that's why the rule's in place. So if I try to copy this and paste it over to here, you'll initially see it until a content rule is flagged, and then you'll see the pop-up. So I don't have permissions to see that or do that, and then it'll take that file away. Okay, pretty simple demonstration of how a content rule works in real-world time. And quickly, I want to show you some network lock functionality as well. Again, I can apply this content rule to any of the network lock protocols other than Telnet. So whether I want to block that from going out through an email attachment or going through an instant messenger or any of those types of things, I could do that as well. But for this demonstration, we'll go ahead and do something very straightforward. And here, again, we're talking about layered security. We're at the raw protocol level, FTP, HTTP, SMTP, and all the SSL versions of those. Then we have some abstraction layers. We have social networks, which we've abstracted away from typical web because we believe these should be handled with more care than your typical web access for your users. Same with webmail. So this would abstract away things like Google Mail, Yahoo Mail, Hotmail, things of that nature where a lot of data leakage happens because they're just simply sending emails to themselves and it didn't go through your normal Exchange email gateway for filtering that you normally have. So in this case, we're going to go ahead and jump right to an application, and we're going to just vacate the permission list. And it's a very important concept to understand in device lock. Absence from the permission list equals no access. So you don't have to explicitly deny access to large groups and paint yourself into a corner with your policy and flexibility of policy. So in this way, I can always add back exception access, and anyone who's not in the list simply doesn't have access, and that'll be reflected here when I say OK. So this means no one will be able to access Yahoo Messenger, which is fine. Okay. And again, we have content rules for all the protocols as well. So if I wanted to quickly add this to David M. I now have any number of protocols. So if I want to say no FTP, sorry, can't do it, then I can set up that rule as well. Okay. All right, that was successful. Now, if I try to launch Yahoo, it will actually launch the application, but it won't allow you to connect. So we see the Yahoo launch, but then when it tries to sign in, sorry. And if I try to sign in again, it's going to keep popping up that message. Sorry, you don't have access to Yahoo Messenger. Okay, all along the way, we've been monitoring all of this with our auditing and shouting. I want to briefly show that. And we use that with our Device Lock Management Console, which manages the back end of any Device Lock Enterprise Server Collection Agent instances you have. And those all roll up into a Microsoft SQL database. So if I go into the Audit Log Viewer, you will see all the aggregated collections from all of the machines that you're managing. You see your failure and success records. You can see what's been, how your policy is working on blocking certain things or allowing certain things. You see the fully qualified machine name, certainly the time and date stamp. What was the source of the attempted breach or the attempted transaction? Again, what was it? Was it a deletion, an add, an open? It'll also go through and tell you exactly what device was being used. So if you have a rogue device in your organization, you can then track and see what machines that rogue device was used on. You also have the fully qualified username and several other pieces of information that are perfect for auditors to use. You're able to sort and filter by any of these columns, and I could do a sample filter here. Let's say that PPA executable that I launched earlier or tried to launch is a piece of malware, and maybe I want to find the origin of where that came in. So I could do a wildcard search within this this particular column for PPA, and quickly filters that down to everything that just had PPA in it. So I have the log files and the executables here, and I can see where it failed and where it succeeded. We also have several canned reports that are based on the collected audit and shadow information that'll produce graphical reports for you, or again, you can export any of this data into other formats, Crystal reports or Excel even for additional reporting capabilities or display capabilities. And we also have a content search server, so if we actually want to search on all of this, not only the event information, but the also the inside of the shadowed files that we've collected, we could do that as well. And again, this is a complete textual search of this entire database. So I can see that, okay, I have a rule for SSN 3 or more, and I can see that, okay, in every instance that failed, so that's following my content rules as I want. Also, here's the shadow log viewer. So these are the actual files captured, and I can forensically view any of these by right-clicking and going to View. I can look at that at hexadecimal format or whatever format you need, and this doesn't change any attributes of the file for forensic purposes. If you have your own Windows-based forensic file viewer, you can plug that in here instead of using our default one as well. Okay. And with that, I will go ahead and change presenters. And thank you very much.
All right, that was great. Thank you so much, David. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Thanks a lot. That was a great presentation. I really, truly appreciate taking us through all of that. I'm always fascinated by what the product can actually deliver. So with that, now we are going to bring Ray Sprong back online. And Ray, you can unmute yourself, and we will hopefully be doing a quick drawing here and announcing our winner. I also want to encourage anybody, all of you here who have joined this webinar, to reach out to us if you have any additional questions or want to discuss this with us further. If you send an email to webinars@devicelock.com, we will hook you up with the appropriate people, and we'll continue to work with you and hopefully help you solve any issues you have related to this very critical issue in anybody's network, or if you're helping others with their network. So Ray, with that, are you ready to do a drawing?
I am indeed, Paul. But
Great.
I wanted to thank David and yourself and Vincent on a job well done again. While everyone's been speaking, I've written down the names of all the attendees and cut them up into little pieces of paper, and I have Tiffany
Okay.
from my office ready to draw from the ball. Tiffany?
That's some pretty high-tech stuff there, Ray.
Yeah, right.
Only the best.
And good scissors skills.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why mute comes in handy. So Tiffany's drawn the name, and we have Ross Dorman of Northwestern Memorial Hospital. Congratulations, Ross. Sorry for everyone else, but stay tuned. ITAP Partners, we give iPads away regularly.
All right. Well, great. Way to go, Ross. And then again, any of you out there that are interested in discussing this further for any projects that you're involved with, please let us know. With that, we are going to end the webinar. Have a great day.